everyone, it's Celia. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Father-Daughter Experience.
I'm Cesare, and today we're going to talk about height.
Woo! How tall are you?
I am 6'4". Thankfully, I am not shrinking. Had a physical recently, and they tried to tell me I was 6'3". Turns out the lady that was doing my measurement was 5'1" and could not actually reach to the top of my height.
So they're trying to scam you out of that extra inch.
Yeah, I'm 6'4". How tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
In heels?
Out of them.
Out of heels.
6'4" in heels. Or taller, should I want. But today, the catalyst of this episode comes from me asking my dad, why do men lie about their heights on dating apps? And I don't mean this in the malicious way. I think a lot of my guy friends would take it as like, oh, well, you're tall, you don't get it. But when I show up on a date, if I match with someone who, let's say they are 6 feet tall, and I know I'm going to be about an inch taller than them, which is fine to me. But if I show up on the date, which has happened, and they are visibly shorter, we're not making eye contact directly, like there's an angle down on my head, you've lied about your height. And I absolutely understand that there are shorter women who are maybe not going to notice, or men who are maybe not going to notice if their partner is shorter than them or taller than them, but not the height they said. But it is very jarring for me, especially if I wear heels or even if I'm in flats and I'm like, oh, because it causes a change in dynamic and an expectation. And honestly, what a silly thing to lie about. So I pass the question to you, Dad. Why do you think that there is a deception on dating apps? Not always, but at times from men about their heights.
So having been someone who has A, never been on a dating website, and B, hasn't dated since I was in high school and before I met your mother, I think for me, I would look at this from the sales approach, right? I'm going to look at this from like, if I'm on a dating app and I'm attempting to sell myself to a pool of women who have obviously like the world is your oyster and you can pick and choose and literally swipe left and right and however else the other apps all work. I think if you're somebody who says to themselves, I'm 5'8", because I know how tall I am. And I'm thinking if I'm 5'7", if I'm 5'8", if I'm 5'10", like I know how tall I am. But the reason I know how tall I am is because I put clothes on and I go and get a physical every year, right? And it's like when I put on clothes, is my inseam a 30 inseam or am I a 34 inseam, right? If I'm a 30 inseam, I'm probably not 6 feet tall. But I think, I think the mentality there is if I say I'm taller, the net gets cast wider, that I will get more responses than if I say on the app, like I'm 5'8". So I think from an initial visceral reaction, it's just the women like taller men. And so I want to appear to be tall, or I at least think by saying I'm 6 feet tall when I'm really 5'10", it opens the door to women who want to date men that are 6 feet tall. And I'm hoping that once I'm in there, my personality will sell me on like maybe getting a second date and getting you to overlook the fact that I'm actually only 5'10".
Sure. I think it's interesting. When I was younger, I had a mean streak in me. I think it's still there. But
I like you said, almost like she's still there. Like she's on your shoulder.
Yeah, she is. She's my little devil. Which was, and I mean, it's not necessarily untrue anymore, but that I wouldn't date men that were shorter than me. Because a lot of the time when I was younger, when boys would like ask me out, it was embarrassing to be like very tall and have these like men who were much shorter than me for me at the time. I was also like not super confident even in my own height at that time.
Sure.
But I think, there was a time where I was like, oh, like I won't date boys shorter than me. And my friends were nasty about it, but they didn't have to deal with the same stuff of like, well, if I want to wear heels, I'm that much taller. And having boys tell me, don't wear heels, it makes me insecure. Or don't, I mean, not in those words, but like, don't wear heels. Like, I don't want you to be that much taller than me, which is also an insecurity thing. But now I think I've kind of come around on the idea of like these short kings, but a lot of men call themselves short kings, but don't have that confidence, I feel.
So let me ask you this question, right? So you're saying like your friends would get mad at you because you were essentially
I would reject people, not on the basis of personality or anything, but on that they were
your friends,
men that were shorter than me.
And your friends would get mad, but how tall were your friends?
Also like that guy's height. Or shorter.
Or shorter.
Yeah.
Right. So they're on the opposite end of the spectrum. So they're really not understanding where you're coming from on the, no, like I am significantly taller than that person. And I think your experience, from what I recall, but your experience was that like most of the time, those guys that were shorter than you, that would want to date you, some of them were okay with your height and others weren't.
Right. And I think that's been the catalyst for me as I've gotten older and more confident and comfortable myself, is that I'm like, oh, okay. I'm okay with dating someone shorter than me, but they can't have a confidence issue about my height because I'm going to wear heels like that are an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches higher tall. I'm going to wear my platform sandals. I like being tall now. I stand up in a room and I feel powerful,
It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And now I really do feel like I've embraced it. So for me, again, back to this sort of short king idea, something we had talked about, I want someone who's like a Joe Jonas. Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner.
I know where this is going.
Are so cool. But like in pictures, when you see them in like the media, she's often wearing heels, which is awesome. She's a tall woman.
Right.
I believe she's about my height. And so she is significantly taller than him in lots of pictures when they're at like premieres and stuff, because she's wearing heels. Right. And he just looks like, and he's there. And it's awesome. And
Sure.
He just looks so confident. And honestly, even on his TikTok, he makes like jokes about it. Like, I'll take it. Like, I will be like a short king for her, like anything. And I'm like, that's cool. Obviously,
that's the energy.
That's the energy you should be bringing. Obviously, Joe Jonas is also not that short, but like
Shorter.
He looks compared to her much shorter. And I think it's very cool when you see someone who has a partner that is taller than them and they're just like, yeah, let her own it. Like, she's a rock star. Cool.
Sure.
So, or even there's this picture of like Zendaya and Tom Holland where Zendaya has like her arm around his waist and it's like, that's Zendaya's boyfriend. Like, it's so cute. But like, even that is like, there's this confidence. I think it's setting aside this like need to be like, I'm bigger and I'm the protector. And I think it's kind of cute when it's like, this is like pocket size is so mean, but like, I think it's cute. Like a man who's like willing to be, for me at least, like,
this is my adorable Hobbit boyfriend.
Yeah. Like,
well, have you seen,
lean into it. I'm very tall.
Have you seen the video? Have you seen the video of the two of them doing, Zendaya and Tom Holland doing the stunts for, Spider-Man? What is it? Far From Home.
No.
There's a video where they're basically like they're on one of those rigs where they're kind of flying around and they have to land, and I think they have to land on like the top of a bridge, but it's obviously all CGI, but they're shooting it on a green screen. But what ends up happening is, because they're both on a rig, her feet hit the ground like, a good 3 or 4 inches before his do, so like she has to like buckle her knees and then like catch him because he comes down after her and she's already on the ground. So it's kind of like you're saying, like in that instance, like he is in theory catching her and like saving her, but like in reality, as they're shooting it, like she's like making sure he doesn't like bite it when they hit the ground.
Yeah, and look, like there's nothing to say. I still love people who are taller than me. I like that. I like feeling short at times. It's cool when I meet someone and I'm like, or like when I see like women out in public and they're like taller than me. I'm like, oh my God, how tall do you think she is? And then we make a joke because people who are shorter than us often like look to see if. Well, with you, it's like you're a tall guy, but with Mom and I, because Mom is 5'10". They'll see us out in public and it's immediately like, down. Are you wearing sandals? Are you wearing flats? Are you wearing heels? Back up, kind of down again. And it used to make me feel really self-conscious, and now you just kind of laugh because you're like
watching them. You're actually watching them calculate.
Because if you see that I'm wearing a heel, I'm still tall. Like that's always been my thing, is when somebody like clocks you out and about, it's like, even if I'm wearing a heel that's 3 inches and I'm very tall, that makes me almost your height,
right?
6'4".
6'4".
But when people look you down for those heels, I'm still tall without them. That's what I always think is funny. It's like when you see someone there have been times when I've been out like on 6th Street in Austin.
You're wearing heels. You're not wearing stilts.
Correct. Well, there have been times though where I've seen women out and I'm like, oh my God, another tall woman. And I do the heel check. But then I see they're wearing like a 6-inch heel. And I'm like, first of all, impressive. I don't think I could spend a night out in 6-inch heels without like rolling my ankle. So I'm like, immediately I'm like, nice. And then my second thought is like, okay, but wait, why? I wonder if she gets sort of the same looks. Whereas I feel often like people are like, why do you need extra height? Why do you need to be taller? You're already tall. like that's annoying or like that's obnoxious. Like I've definitely gotten those remarks before. I think the stance has softened on it with the prevalence of social media, but when I was younger, it was still kind of like, okay. And so this is such like a meme. Have you seen the Netflix movie Tall Girl?
I have not.
Okay, so it could have been good, but it was written by a man.
Okay.
Which is the first problem. And not a man that's tall, which is the second problem with the movie. But Netflix's Tall Girl is basically about this young girl. I think her name's Jodie or something like that. Yeah. Who's played by like an ex-dance mom's girl.
Okay.
And she, I think, is supposed to be 6 feet tall in the movie. And her opening monologue is like, I'm a tall girl. I'm 6'1", or I'm 6 feet tall, and I wear men's size 13 Nike shoes. And then like all this other shit about like being tall. But like the movie ends up being about like how a short king wins her over,
sure.
Which I was like, of course it is, because this wasn't written by a woman. And second, but I remember watching that movie and it's become such a meme, like being tall. But the point of all of this, and I'll tie it all together with a nice bow, is that when I was younger, I was out of place, and it was pointed out a lot of like, you're tall. Why you're so much taller? I had a growth spurt so early on in my life that like I didn't really have girls who were around my height until I was in college and I was rowing.
Right, sure. Which is essentially like you found the community of like, this is where they're all hiding.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, sports has tall women. Cool. But like when Tall Girl came out, you know, lots of my friends, this was when I was in college, would come to me and be like, LOL, like, was this what it was like? And it's like, not really. It was a lot more like jokes about like getting ready for the flood because like your pants would be too short, or like people asking you to move to the back for pictures because you're blocking somebody. Or I didn't have like a partner for dance units when I was in like 5th grade. I remember this very vividly, that like I had to be the boy role for a lot of things, which like ultimately I was kind of fine with because
sure.
the boys' roles are more fun than being led. But like I remember watching Tall Girl and feeling really disappointed because I was like, there actually are like weird limiting things about being tall when you're younger, especially as a woman. Like I wasn't really asked out a lot when I was younger. I wasn't, even though people later were like, I had a crush on you, and they were like, but you were so intimidating. You were so scary, you're so tall. And you're like, oh, so it was like an insecurity thing when I was younger, and now I'm like, now I own it. Well, now it's cool.
Well, it's like a double-edged sword for you too, because I think as you've gotten older, your personality has kind of evolved and matured into where it is now, where you, similarly to me, are very outgoing. You're kind of very boisterous. You're very kind of jovial. So I think on top of being a very tall, kind of loud woman, like I think intimidating does come across. I think that is like an adjective that people would use, because they just be like, oh no, like she's like, it takes a certain amount of, like you're saying, a certain amount of Joe Jonas confidence to be able to approach you and say like, hey, I'm interested in chatting. I'm interested in talking. I've seen this. Like I got to see this on display when we went out. When we went out for my birthday, we went out dancing here in Austin
to 80s night.
For 80s night.
You'll hear about it a lot. It's my go-to place.
Yeah, but safe space. But just, I mean, that whole weekend could be an entire episode where we kind of dissect going out. But the idea of watching it kind of firsthand, the levels of people who will approach you in public, and kind of where they come about and where they're coming from in terms of like, are they taller? Are they shorter? Are they just, you know, I think the quote that I used was one from basketball, which is that you can see the guys in the club who are the volume shooters, which for those of you that aren't into sports analogies, a volume shooter is the guy that every time the ball gets in his hand, he's just shooting. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about percentages. He's not shooting for the high percentage shots. He's not going for the layups. He's just firing the ball at the net constantly, hoping that something goes in. And if it doesn't, he's just got his hands up. Where's the ball? And I think those guys are some of my favorite to see, but some of them, again, it's less about, I think, confidence in approach and more just like every no is closer to a yes. Like
sure, somebody somewhere will be drunk enough or
lonely enough
or friendly enough to just give me like something.
I just need a little bit of an opening to kick that door open.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think like it's been interesting now that like I'm older. Now I feel like I own it. Now it's just like I'm tall and I exist in space. I'll wear my heels. I'll stand up straight. You know, when I was a rower, it was an asset. But I think back to sort of the tall girl metaphor of like watching that movie felt like nobody understands it. So then it does feel like, of course, it feels silly to have a movie about like being tall and being a tall girl, because also she treated it like it was like the worst problem you could have.
Sure.
When like racism and homophobia and all these other terrible things exist in the world. And she's like, being tall is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. When it's like, no, being tall is not the worst thing that can happen to somebody. But there could have been more interesting ways to talk about, like, I think especially for women, like I often felt like I was emasculating men when I was younger, and even now sometimes, by being taller. And it's weird because like, you know, I think I try to stay out of a lot of like traditional gender roles in life. I mean, you know, I don't want kids, and I like this sort of like free single life that I have. But like when I think about like a partner, like I don't think I'd match well with somebody who really wants me to fit into like a very like domestic feminine box, even though I like elements of those things. But I feel often like my height has always contradicted that. Like I played male roles in theater because there weren't a lot of tall guys, and then guys would be like,
sure,
Celia's getting cast as boys, like those are boys roles, like why aren't we getting them? Or it'd be like, oh well, Celia is really funny because she's tall and like she stands out against like the rest of the cast. And ultimately I loved all of those roles and stuff. But even when I was like a romantic lead in my senior year, when I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream, my love interest was like 5 or 6 inches shorter than me. And he made comments about it like during like practice and stuff of like, oh, it's weird. And I was like, well, yeah, you feel like a little boy and I'm like
a giant hat.
Yeah, I'm huge.
Well, so let's kind of bring this full circle.
A lot of thoughts, I guess.
It is a lot of thoughts, but let's like it made me think. Let's if we bring this full circle back to the question that you posed to me at the beginning, which was like, why do I think guys lie about their heights? Like let's do a little bit of a public service announcement here, right? I think what would be good is to kind of understand from your perspective, like why, you know, like when you see that, right? I think what, now listening to kind of what you were just talking about in terms of like what it means to you and like where it puts you in terms of the dynamic, right? That by saying like, again, let's just use the 6'5'10" numbers in my scenario, right? Like you're 6 feet, you say you're 6 feet tall, but really you're 5'10", which when you're 6'1" puts them 3 inches shorter than you.
Right. Which is noticeable.
Which starts to be noticeable, and then be below 5'10", like if you're 5'9" and you say you're 5'11", you're accounting for 2 inches shorter than you in your head, and now it's 4, right? Like, so like that's again significant. So I think that there are obviously, like, we could go into the psychology even more. Like I'm going off of what my thought process is on like why you do it. You try and broaden the net, and then hopefully get more opportunities for women to engage with you and talk to you, and then, you know, potentially agree to a first date. I think this would be the point where you say, hey, look, maybe it doesn't matter to girls who are 5'8" or 5'9" that you say you're 6 feet tall, but when you come at a tall, confident woman who is legit over 6 feet tall, you're, no pun intending, putting us on our back. You know, they're putting you on the back foot, and they're essentially going into that date as a liar.
Well, yeah, I think that's where it comes from me. For me is the lying component. I honestly don't care if people are shorter. I know some people really are like, height does matter. But when I'm like swiping through, yeah, I look at the height, but ultimately, like, I want someone I'm going to be able to like hang out with and have a good time with. But I think earlier this year I went on a date where I pulled up and I walked out and I went to give him a hug, and I was like, oh, I think he was off by like 4 inches of his height. And then, yeah, you spend the whole time like, you're a liar. And like, right. And there's not really a nice way to be like, oh,
Bye.
I don't think no, not
Just-
even that. But I don't think there's not really a nice or kind way to be like, hey, homie, did you lie? Like, did you lie about your height? But there have been times like that date. I was like, I spent the whole time. I was just like, what else is he lying about?
Well, right.
It's such a little, but also major part. It'd be like lying about like when your birthday is to somebody. Like, oh, my birthday is like August 6th, and then August 6th rolls around, and then everyone's like, happy birthday, and you're like,
Yeah,
my
actually,
birthday's April 1st.
My birthday's actually Christmas Day.
Like, and then you're like, why would you lie about that? And then you're just like, just thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a Leo.
Right, like
Leos have such a good personality. I wanted to be a Leo.
Literally, to me, lying about your height feels the exact same as lying about like a birthday or something like that.
It's a
It's
nonsense
stupid.
thing.
It's a silly thing to lie about to me. But such as it is, it is.
No, so I mean, I think we've kind of covered the topic, but so ultimately, like for those of you out there that are lying about your height on your dating apps, like let's take this as I mean, you can't have heard it this can't be the first time you're hearing it. Like own up to what you got, own up to how tall you are. If you want, get those shoes with the little inserts, those little platform
put
shoes.
in your own heel. Wear heels yourself.
Wear a man heel. Why
or
not?
any heel.
Or any heel. Wear a lady's heel.
My PSA is just stop lying about your height. People will like you if they like you. And then if you're a tall woman or tall person out there feeling unconfident about your height, put on a pair of heels, strut around downtown, keep your chin up, but also look where you're going, and don't step on grates in stilettos, and live your life.
Yeah. And come with that Joe Jonas energy.
Come with that Joe. It's Short King Summer.
Short King Summer.
Okay? Go get your ladies. Or
Well,
your kings, your queens, your kings or your queens, whoever you want. All right. Well, we'll see you next Wednesday with a whole new episode. As always, you can find us at father-exp on Instagram and TikTok, and at the father-daughter experience on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.